fans, welcome to the extravaganza known as the Pittsburgh Steelers Hangover, brought to you by BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And with me today, as always, is my good friend, Tony Defio. Tony, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Brian. Good to talk to you. Good to talk about the all-important dress rehearsal preseason game. I can't wait. They look really great.
Week 3 is the best one every year. You actually look at the schedule. You don't really care about who they're playing in week 1 of the preseason. It's always week 3. You know, every year it's going to be Carolina in week 4, and then that doesn't matter. My stepson is actually going to the game. I haven't had the heart to tell him. He lives in Charlotte, and I don't have the heart to tell him that he's not going to know who anybody is. But it's still the idea of going.
Right.
But with that being said, I would have went if I actually tried to go, but we have so much stuff going on around here with the kids getting ready to go back to school. Maryland is not back to school yet, so they go after Labor Day for the last time, and then they go back to August right after that. So that's something that we have dealing with. So back to school stuff. So with that being said, it's the hangover. I'm excited, and we know. Let me explain to you, if you're not familiar with the process of the hangover. This is our truest hangover so far because this is the day after extravaganza. Sometimes we are really hungover. We feel like we just woke up in a ditch and had the worst night of our lives. This is a different kind of hangover. This is one of those that you're like, I don't know what happened, but I had an awesome time. And that's how I feel after seeing the 18-6 victory by the Pittsburgh Steelers in Tennessee, and with a lot of their first team players. Most of them were there for a little bit, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get to it right off the bat, Tony. The title of the show tonight is, are the Steelers ready after 3 weeks in the preseason for the regular season?
Yes, based on these 3 games, especially the last 2, I'd say they're ready. I mean, if they look in total disarray, would say they weren't ready. So the opposite has to be true. You know, at least that's the perception. They look like a team that has been as focused as they claim to be this offseason. They look like a total unit on both sides of the ball.
That I agree with wholeheartedly. We could talk about all kinds of things, and that's what we're going to do. But the first thing that stuck out to me is that defense. One word to describe them. Let me actually say 2 words to describe them. Blazing fast. I was going to say just fast, but that is the fastest unit I have seen in a long time in Pittsburgh, and I'm really excited. Can that keep up in the regular season, Tony?
I can't see why not. I mean, you're doing this without Joe Hayden, who's the best player in their secondary. So, yeah, I mean, once he gets in there and gets healthy and locks down his side of the secondary, I can't see why it wouldn't be even faster. You would have less responsibility for the other guys to worry about. So, yeah, I think it can continue for sure.
So if you saw that while Tony was talking, I just put a message from Good Day Mates from Joel Coleman up there. And so what we have here is the live chat. And keep in mind, if you do have a question that you want to go to the top of the queue, ask right away. We have the super chat feature, which is helps pay for administrative cost and contest of Behind the Steel Curtain, The Hangover, and all of the other podcasts. So if you want to go ahead and do that, feel free to do so. We will try to get to your questions. And if you have something cool, we'll put it up like that. People are excited. People are so excited. So is Sean Toner. Look what Sean's saying. 7 sacks, baby. That's all you've got to say. 7 sacks. So, I mean, and they came from different guys. 2 from Stephon Tuitt, but maybe 1.5 from Stephon Tuitt. I don't know what they really credited. I think it was 2 that they credited him with, but I know Bud Dupree was in on that one. So, Bud is really showing that he looks like a juggernaut, and he's in that contract year. But they really remind me of something special, and I believe getting bent with Bo, feels the same way. Did they not remind you of defenses of Steelers past? Off the top of your head, Tony, who do you think that this Steeler defense reminds you of the most?
If I had to go off the top of my head, I would say those mid '90s Steelers. Blitzburgh. They were. It was a pretty regular occurrence for them to record 50-some sacks a year. But I mean, this is a continuation of the last 2 years. I mean, they've led the NFL in sacks the last 2 years, 2017 and 2018, and just like last night, they've come from everywhere: defensive line, linebackers, inside linebackers, outside linebackers, even Mike Hilton. So. This is just a continuation. Now, the question going into the regular season is, can they turn these sacks into takeaways? And we sure hope so, because you would think that would have happened by now. But I think it's the law of averages say it's going to happen in 2019.
You know what? You're correct. We have not seen takeaways, and that's something that is a pressing issue right now. They will come. They will hopefully that the front seven will be forcing takeaways with just the fact that you're putting pressure on a quarterback to release the ball a whole lot earlier, and there's defensive backs, and the defensive backs have been the Achilles heel for the Steelers a whole lot in the last couple of years, and people have noticed. And in the offseason, the Steelers went out of their way to go ahead and take a look at that defense, especially the secondary, and upgrade it. Last year, of course, Terrell Edmunds came in. He's looking like a different guy from year 1 to 2. They went and brought in Mark Barron, who played a good bit of the snaps yesterday in the first half. Devin Bush did not play a lot because he is nursing soreness in his shoulder. He had some kind of shoulder injury. But there's a newcomer that I want to talk about, and Michael Toole wants to talk about as well. First of all, Michael, Bedford, PA. I'm from Johnstown, as I always talk about, Richland to be exact. And I remember lots of battles against the Bedford, I believe Bedford Bisons. I might be wrong on that, but defense has been looking good. And also Steven Nelson has been locking guys down. Yeah, he has. Number 22, Steven Nelson, coming over from the Chiefs. He had 4 takeaways last year, 4 interceptions, and he is looking really good. On that, when Hayden comes back, you have 2 guys that are looking like a great duo of corners there. So I'm really excited for that. Tony, what are your thoughts on Nelson?
Well, my thoughts are, I haven't noticed him in these 2 games. I've seen him, after plays and before plays, but I haven't seen him during plays, meaning getting burned down the field, which is a good sign. It's like they said, he's locking people down. And when Joe Hayden comes back, you know how good he is. I think it speaks volumes to how good this secondary could be in 2019. At last, after how many years of trying to improve it, I think they may have found the right pieces, the right combination to make the back end of this defense truly, if not special, way above average, which I think it's all it needs to be with that front seven.
$5 from Ryan O'Toole. In your opinion, who is having a better preseason? Is it Watt or is it Dupree? So what's your thoughts on that? I mean, I'll throw out mine right away. I really think it's Bud Dupree right now, but we have not seen a whole heck of a lot from TJ Watt. But when he's in there, he's looking impressive. He had very early, I think it was the first or second series, he had a stuff on a running back that he just burst through there and just completely cracked him. He's not a guy that just rushes the passer.
Right.
He is a complete linebacker. Now, as far as a pass rushing phenom, so far in camp, it's Bud Dupree. And, Bud Dupree is a guy that, he has been accused of overrunning the quarterback, and it seems like he is zeroed in. This seems like a new guy trying to get that contract. So that's something pretty exciting. So I'm going to vote for right now Dupree in the preseason, but I'm going to preface it with it. I really don't care, because as long as they both look good, and I think they complement one another. Tony?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely been Bud Dupree, but that's what you want right now. I think we know what TJ Watt can do. He's a complete package. He can rush. He can drop back in coverage. He plays the run well. You need Bud Dupree to step his game up. And judging by his first 2 games of the preseason last week, and I guess the only 2, he's probably not going to play on Thursday. He's done that. He was in, as you said, on that once the sack that resulted in the safety yesterday with Tuitt. So like we talked about last week, like Keith Butler said, if he ups his game, he's the key to the defense, and he makes it a complete defense in a sense. So he's having a better camp, and he's having a better preseason, and that's what you really want at this point.
I never picked between Lloyd and Green. I never picked between Harrison and Woodley. I was just glad they were both on that team. So with that being said, here's something. I got to bring this one up. Quintarius Beatty. Can we acknowledge that Coach Tomlin won a challenge? I don't know if this one counts. Hey, I don't know if it counts with the stats, but I really don't care about the stats. We know that he won a challenge. It was a good challenge yesterday. It is the equivalent. I'm a big Stranger Things fan, and for anybody that likes the show Stranger Things, it's the equivalent of Steve Harrington winning a fight. If you watch the show, Tony, do you watch the show?
I've watched a few episodes, yeah.
Okay,
I'm familiar with the character anyway.
Poor Steve never wins a fight, and he finally did in season 3. And they made very comic moment when they stopped and said, "Wait a second, Steve just won a fight." So that's really funny to me. I put that on not random thoughts. I'm sorry, I put that on knee-jerk reactions yesterday, and somebody acknowledged it. So you can tell that we have some fans out there. Jarrell Williams says Steven Nelson is better than Border Patrol.
Cool.
I don't know what that means. So
I think he spelled border wrong if he meant the Border Patrol that I'm thinking of. But that's okay.
But that's great though. I like that. That would be a great name for him. Here's one. Everybody wants to know about. Let's just put this up here. Everybody wants to know about this guy.
Oh yes.
Now I'm taking credit for this one, not for his play on the field, but 2 guys way back in May, because it's funny thing about this show. We do this show every single week, and I also do the Steeler preview every single week, even in the off season. Things you have to do, guys that nobody's ever heard of. And one of the questions way back when was like, who are the undrafted free agents? Who are the guys that came in and won the golden ticket in rookie minicamp? And 2 of the guys that won those golden tickets to camp were Devlin Hodges, who we talked about, not tonight, but who we talk about a lot, and Tuzar Skipper. And the first thing I noticed about Tuzar Skipper is, one, he's from Toledo, so he played with Ola Adeniyi, which is pretty exciting. And then, I mean, and the other thing I noticed is this guy he looks mean. He just looks like a bad dude, and he seems like a really cool dude when I've seen in any interview that I've seen with him, but really excited about what he does on the field. Guy has 3 sacks so far, 9 tackles, and he's just omnipresent. He is around all the time. So is he going to make the team, Tony?
Oh, absolutely. And, we talked about the importance of preseason games and what they mean. They might not mean much for the veterans, but this is the perfect illustration of what they mean for these young guys. I mean, would we even be talking about this guy if it wasn't for his performance in the preseason up to this point? No. So if there's ever a guy who stamped his way onto a roster, it's definitely Tuzar Skipper. It's a great story, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do in the regular season.
I think he has to make this team. It just depends how many outside linebackers they keep, and it just depends how also because they only kept 3 last year, but also what do you do with a Denny? Does he go on IR, but then he can't come back right away? So it's just to see how they move things around. But there is a lot of excitement there. A lot of people, Swifty Pool has said Bud has to show me in the regular season. He always has the moves in preseason, but they've not translated to regular season. I agree with you, Swifty Pool. I got to make sure I pronounce that correctly. But here's the thing. I think this is a guy that, it's threat level midnight. Somebody else mentioned that what if he is he going to do this after he gets his snowman? I just hope that he doesn't disappear if he gets a new contract. Now, I have a theory about Bud Dupree, and I'm going to say this right here. I think he's going to get a new contract. I think whether he has a crappy year this year or if he has a great year, I just don't think he's on the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. And the reason I say that, because if he has a crappy year, they're like, okay, we're done. And you kind of understand that. But if he's a fantastic year, he's going to play himself out of Pittsburgh because he is going to want a blockbuster deal. He's making about $9 million a year this year. He's going to want some big time money, and I don't know if they go for that. I don't know if they can go for that with guys like Hargrave needing money. They're still talking about giving Hayden money right now, so that could be very interesting. The whole Bud Dupree. It might be a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with Bud. Elijah Fisher. This is very interesting. People say that Skipper may not make the roster due to his lack of special teams. How good does a UDFA that isn't on special teams have to be? So here's a question to you, Tony. Think back, and I don't know about this. I can't remember, but was Ola on special teams a whole heck of a lot last year?
I don't remember seeing him on special teams. I could be wrong, but
I'm talking in the preseason, though.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing him. I just remember seeing him wreak havoc, on defense like Skipper's doing this year, and he made the team. So I can't really answer that question, but I think when a guy has the kind of preseason he's having on defense, you can't overlook that. I mean, I'm sorry. I think eventually, you just have to say, look, this guy's could be a special player, and we can't let him go, regardless of special teams.
Here's a special teamer that has stuck around for a while, and it's he's no longer Bay, but everybody writing him off year after year, and they kept bringing him back for what he did on special teams. A lot of people thought Johnny Holton could be that guy. Really don't think that he is. Sean Toner says, I think Dirty Red stays. He's our best special teamer. Look, he's a Pro Bowl special teamer, potentially. He actually thought he was going to be named 2 years ago. But with that being said, if you have somebody that could pass rush like that and play like that, do you really want to let him go? I mean, you can learn special teams.
Right.
I'm sure he's played special teams. I mean,
it's a lot of want to.
Yeah, I mean that's just putting him out there. Yeah, but I do agree that Dirty Red stays. I just don't think you discount a guy just because of the fact that he doesn't play special teams with what he brings to the table there. I mean, that's like, look, I mean, this is going to sound completely crazy, but you're not going to get rid of a guy, Devlin Hodges, just because he doesn't play special teams. I mean, now that's way out there. I mean, they might get rid of Devlin Hodges or Dobbs or for what I'm trying to say. I mean, there's only so much room on special teams too. Think about it. There's only potentially 10 guys that are playing on special teams, and half of them are on the line, and then you have the kicker, punter, what have you. So I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to play special teams, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of people agree that Bud leaving is inevitable. A lot of people want to talk about Ulysses Gilbert the third. He's no longer the love child of Ulysses S. Grant and Marcus Gilbert or Melissa Gilbert. I'd say Marcus Gilbert is actually funnier there. But no, I mean, this guy is playing his way onto the team as well. It's just, you've got a crowded inside linebacker situation. So Tony, let's talk inside linebacker. We know who the givens are. So you could start with the givens, but let's look at inside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, you have obviously Bush and Barron and Williams, but like we talked about after the draft with Dirty Red, it's not Skipper, but there's a Gilbert, threaten his spot. We see what he can do at the inside linebacker spot. He's active. He's all over the field. If the special teams is even close, and I don't know about Gilbert on special teams, but if it's even close, it might be a tough decision. That's why these things aren't decided by the faint of heart. I mean, that's why these guys get paid a lot of money to make these decisions. And Matakevich is so good on special teams that you almost have to keep him. But you're looking at two young guys at positions that they've lacked depth for a while, meaning Gilbert and Skipper. It's gonna be hard to say goodbye to one of those guys, let alone both. And I don't envy Tomlin and Colbert for cut down day at all.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. The inside linebackers: Bush given, Barron given, Vince Williams given, Matakevich. I think he stays. But I don't know if he is your LJ4 type of guy because he doesn't do it as much as an inside linebacker, as important as he is to special teams, but he seems to have stepped it up. But that's a lot of third and fourth quarter play as well in the preseason. So that's 4. After that, I'm thinking if they keep 5, Ulysses Gilbert.
Yeah.
And if they go 5, then you're looking at 4 outside linebackers. Watt and Dupree are there. Look, nobody wants to hear this, but Anthony Chickalo's not going anywhere. They paid him a good bit of money. They brought him in for a reason. They keep him there for a reason. They're not getting rid of him. I just would be shocked to see that happen. You have that Ola Adeniyi roster spot, but does that mean that what do you do with Skipper? You have to get rid of somebody else. So there's some different things that you can do, though. You don't have to keep 5 safeties, 6 safeties. You don't have to keep 3 quarterbacks. And we haven't touched on the quarterback situation. Darren Dalton was asking about that, but we will. We'll touch on that. But you don't have to keep 3. You don't have to keep a certain amount of everything. So if you want to keep an extra guy somewhere, you might have one less offensive lineman. Hey, for me, let's talk about the defensive line real quick. I think you could free up somebody there without keeping you don't really have to keep 6 defensive linemen. Gravedigger, Jay Wobble is going to be there. The bookends, Hayward and Tuitt are there. Alu will be there. And then probably the next guy, a lot of people don't want to hear this, but Daniel McCullers is a big guy. He had a great game yesterday. That's your 5th guy. Then number 6, not much I've seen out of Isaiah Buggs has impressed me to keep him. Casey Sale's a nice player, but I think I'd be fine with 5 guys on the defensive line to keep a guy like Gilbert and keep a guy like Skipper to make it possible. So that's something that we very well could talk about. We had a $5 question and I lost it. So let me go back and look for it. But I do know the question. I just don't know who to give credit for it. But the question was, actually, I believe it was Captain Underpants, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the question was, is this a top 5 defense? That's tough, but I had a fantasy draft yesterday, and I took them as my second defense. They were cheap, they were easy to get, and they're flying around the ball. They're so fast. They're playing good football. We'll see more. See how they do against Tom Brady, and I'll be able to tell you more. But I really think right now that they possibly could be a top 5 defense. I'm not going to go ahead and anoint them as one. I want to see some. Actually, I want to see 4 games and see if this is really a good team, a good defensive team. But a lot of the credit has to go to Terrell Austin.
Yeah.
He has done a great job as well. I might be wrong on who to give that credit for. I have not found it. I do know that Captain Underpants asked about a safety, and it's do you think Dangerfield is gone? He hasn't really showed up this preseason. Dangerfield's one of those guys that kind of reminds me of Steven Johnson and O.J. Fort from the last couple of years. They'll cut him, they'll bring him back. They'll cut him, they'll bring him back. It just seems like he could be possibly that guy. I don't think he's done a lot. Jarrell Williams mentioned earlier that Marcus Allen should be gone. I kind of disagree with that. I like the way Marcus Allen flies around the ball. I'm thinking at safety right now, and I'm going to exclude Mike Hilton from this conversation because I don't know whether he is still a slot corner or whether he's a safety, Tony. But so, I mean, if you're looking, you know that Sean Davis has a job. He might be hurt, and we're going to have to. It's an ankle. We don't really have too much information on that. He's not going to play this week. We don't know what his availability is going to be. But you have Terrell Edmonds. He is definitely penciled in as a starter. We love Cameron Kelly. He was going to get the job before Davis went down as far as that third or fourth safety. And then what do you throw in Marcus Allen on that list? And then you have Dangerfield. So that's 5 guys. He could possibly make the team, but I've seen them only keep 4 safeties in the past. And so he could be that guy that they keep moving in and out. And I can see that as a possibility to kind of make room for a guy like Skipper, to make room for Ulysses Gilbert. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think they're always going to go with the youth. I think they know what Dangerfield can do. He's basically limited as a run supporter. They brought him in a lot last year as for the heavy dime. I think they called it a heavy nickel for run support. So he can do that. But as far as pass coverage, I think he's limited there. So, he might be expendable, and they might go with a Marcus Allen or somebody like that. And with all these hybrid guys they have now, you mentioned Hilton, they might try to sacrifice, an extra safety for an extra linebacker to keep it one of those guys. You might see like a Hilton, as your 4th safety, and the slot corner. You don't know, there's just so many things they do as far as specialization now that, you might have to have a guy on the roster who's sort of a utility player. And that might be a Mike Hilton or a Cam Sutton. They've mentioned him as a possible safety, so that, there's so many possibilities that, that they can go with.
Let me give you another one. And before I do that, let's just give credit where it's due with Snowman. And to be a top 5. I wanted to make sure that he got proper credit. Thanks for the $5 tip jar there. Here's Kelly. Remember, he's a corner as well. He was brought in as a corner. Now he's playing safety. So he could be your utility guy there too. Reminds me of days with the Pirates, and you have a second stop that could also play third. Who was the guy? Wally Backman.
Yeah.
Do we have Wally Backman? That wasn't
like
Wally Backman.
One season, yeah,
in 1990. So I could remember that. And that was when things started going really well, and they played that guy all over the place. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball. Here's one guy that a lot of people want to know about. And what about Benny Snell football? I know he didn't play yesterday because he has been playing well. Somebody suggested that he needs to drop some weight, like Le'Veon Bell did. That might help him a whole lot. We saw what losing weight did for James Washington as well. So what are your thoughts there? What's going on with Benny Snell football, and what's going on with Jalen Samuels?
Well, I think Jalen Samuels looks fantastic. I mean, he didn't really get a whole
I
lot
do
of work
too.
last night, but he looks like, he's made that leap, which you want, from your rookie year. And he's far and away surpassed Snell if there ever was a contest for the backup running back. I know Dave Schofield said, you don't have to really worry about ranking running backs as far as the depth, but, if there's ever a 1 and a 2, it's Connor and Samuel. You can't really say anything about Snell because he hasn't really shown us anything. I mean, we were in love with the fact that he was a downhill runner at Kentucky. He was so productive, but maybe it won't translate to the pros. We don't know that yet. He hasn't shown really anything. He's shown what he could do on special teams, but has he shown that? Has he shown enough that he can actually make the team? At this point, I'm not going to have to say no. So, I mean, I was impressed with his personality in the off season and his resume in college, but I haven't been impressed with the preseason work at all. So, I mean, my opinion of him at this point is kind of low.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's going to. I think he's going to play a whole lot better. We do need to see more of him. I'm not ready to go ahead and just write this guy off yet. He's a very young player, but he has a lot of ability. I think at this time last year we weren't as excited about Jalen Samuels as we ended up being. So the problem is with all we do and all the Steeler media does in the off season, all we do is talk about these guys because you got to have something to talk about. And we loved his personality. We anointed Benny Snell Jr. as the next big thing. So, maybe that was premature, but like I said, I'm not ready to jump off that bandwagon yet. All I do know about the running game is Jalen Samuels is a very good player, and he's a very good. Let's talk fantasy football. He's a very good handcuff, but when you're talking about the strength of the team, you got to talk about James Conner. So Kane Adamson, you are right. He's going to be a beast this year. He just seems focused, and when he's in there, he just seems like he's got it figured out. Really excited. Thomas White has a question. After O-line starters, who will fill out the depth? That's a great question, Tony. Well, let's look at it here. Let's start with guard and center. I would say BJ Finney right away. That's your number 6 guy.
Right.
You're looking at Chooks isn't going anywhere. He's just in his second year. He hasn't impressed, but he's not going anywhere. So Chooks is definitely there. And I really think Zach Banner, big tackle, Lincoln Kennedy's son, by the way, a number 1 draft pick of the Atlanta Falcons, way back, I believe it was 92. So he is, he's in there too. He's what, 6'8", 6'9"?
Right.
I think he's 6'8".
Yeah.
Played at USC. He protected Sam Darnold at USC. So that's a guy that I really think is coming into his own. He didn't come until late last year and late in the preseason last year. And it almost seems that they kept him, but it almost seems until you have that full preseason with the Steelers, you don't get a lot of playing time unless you're Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden was a completely different situation, but you noticed with Vance McDonald. Vance McDonald was another guy that it took a while for him to start getting a lot of action. He wasn't exactly healthy. So that's 7 guys. You need a backup guard, and Filer is one of them. But for me, another guy to go ahead and look at would be none other than Fred Johnson, another 6'8" guy, a beast from Florida. And I really like this guy's brand of football. There's a lot of talk, number 9 still going to the tackle. The tackle that's been around a long time. Gerald Hawkins. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know if he sticks around at this point. So there could be another guard that you go ahead and fill in that hole. It could be a guy like Prince from Maryland. Is Prince a guard?
Not sure.
So that's something that I wish Dave Schofield was on, because and sometimes he is in the live chat. So that would be a guy that we could really talk to there. But I think that's what we're looking at.
Then there's the 7th round pick, Gray.
I wanted to call him Isaiah. Oh my gosh, it's with a Derwin Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brain is starting to 91 guys. My brain is starting to just meld into everybody. I was thinking of Isaiah Prince, who was on the team last year, I believe, or is that he the Prince? No, RJ Prince was last year. Isaiah Prince is the guy here now, also from Maryland. So yeah, my brain is starting to hurt. Everybody wants to talk about this, so let's talk about the quarterback situation. Everybody wanted Devlin Hodges as the number 3 guy. A lot of people were ready to run. Okay, gosh, Josh Dobbs out of town. But now there's a new sentiment to just do this. 2 QBs only. Adam Raninger, you're not alone there. A lot of people agree that just go Ben Roethlisberger and go Mason Rudolph. Now, there is about a little more than half of the teams, I believe 18 last year, ran with just 2 QBs. So do you think that they might take that chance and just do that this year, Tony?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if they're going to, but it's like we talked about last week, I think the week before. If you're dipping down into the 3rd string quarterback during a game, you're in trouble anyway. So, if you need to sign a quarterback in an emergency situation, in the week leading up to the next game, you're just gonna have to do that. If it's a Hodges, if it's a Dobbs, it's whomever, So if you really need to, if you really value somebody else at another position, yeah, I could see them going with 2 quarterbacks, because how often, what are the chances of 2 guys getting hurt in the same game, right? So I think that might be a wave of the future for them.
Yeah, now in the past, they did have the luxury of having emergency quarterbacks like Hines Ward, and they also had Antoine Randall L.
Right.
And gosh, I am hungover, I think, from that game. So let me just throw this in. Tight end depth is getting pretty scary. Don't see much from Grimble at all. Kane Anderson, I agree with you. I do want to address that, but what I was trying to address was Thomas White helped me out. It was Damian Prince. So many Princes. And we're not talking about the 5'6" Royal Badness from Minnesota, Prince Rogers Nelson. May he rest in peace. But back to Kane Adamson. Tight end depth is a mess.
The whole unit is a mess.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can say that the ball was slick yesterday, but that's ball security has never been Vance McDonald's forte. But I still believe in Vance McDonald. But after him, I don't believe in him to play 16 games in a season without getting banged up. Not really seeing much from Grimble at all. I agree. Would you favor Gentry as your number 2 guy? Or are you just saying, look, go out and get a number 2 guy and spend what you got to spend right now?
I think you have to go out and get somebody else, because, I mean, Gentry has really not shown a whole lot. I think he has, 2 catches, and Grimble, obviously, he's playing uninspired football. He hasn't stepped up to the task. This is a big deal for them to find a number 2 tight end, and he's done nothing in the 2 or 3 games that he's played. And Kevin Rader is just, I think he was cut the moment, he had his second or third penalty last week, along with the fumble. So I think you have to go out and get a number 2 guy. You have to go out and get a solid veteran to fill in for Jesse James, because obviously it might be too big of a task for a Grimble and Gentry. I think it's just too unproven at this point to risk it going into the season.
Okay, so here's something interesting, and I got away from the quarterback situation for a reason, and then I hit the tight end depth, and I did that on purpose to go back to this. So King Hutchinson, this is, a lot of people agree with this, and this team has a lot of tight ends. I can name 2 tight ends right off the bat that are solid players for this team. One named Jack, one named Eric. It is the Indianapolis Colts, and everybody's saying after the situation with Andrew Luck, the Colts might need Dobbs. I don't think that's. I could never see a situation where you make a trade like that to get a tight end for a quarterback, but that would be fun, wouldn't it?
It'd be in the fantasy world, it would be great, but they're not going to do that. It's always, let's trade our, if you read the site today, Dobbs, he's done, he's washed up. Hey, let's trade him and get a valuable player. It's not going to happen that way. So, and by the way, I don't think Dobbs played as bad as people think he did yesterday. So, but you're still not going to get a valuable player in return for him. There's just no way. You'd be lucky if you get a 7th round pick.
I thought he was terrible yesterday.
Oh, really?
I thought he was absolutely atrocious, and I like what I love the running ability, but gosh, that's against 3rd and 4th string guys. What he's doing is terrible. I thought the interception in the red zone against the Chiefs was bad. I think yesterday was even worse, overthrowing Zach Gentry. I just want to bring up Zach Gentry real quick because I thought this was interesting. Lord forbid something happens to Ben and Rudolph, but would Gentry have to throw if they go down? Hey, he was a quarterback in college. You don't want to see that happen, but they had, let's go in the way back machine. Let's go over 40 years ago. There was an emergency quarterback, a guy who played quarterback in college at the University of Minnesota that was on the Steelers. He was a defensive back, and he actually had to come in and play because I believe Terry Bradshaw and Mike Kurchik went down in the same game. And do you know his name?
I absolutely know his name. It's the great Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy played quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s. Really, I don't think a lot of people know that. That's one of those little hidden gems. There's so much to talk about, but as far as what we're talking about are the bubble guys. And that's a great problem to have. The biggest problem is tight end, which is a problem. We have seen them go out and get guys this week. Right before the 4th preseason game, we've seen them make trades the last 2 years. They did it with Ryan Switzer last year. They did it the year before with Vance McDonald. I could see them possibly doing it again. For who? I don't know. It was just suggested that with Witten back, they go and get Miller from the Cowboys. So there are guys out there, I'm sure that, remember, you only need a number 2 guy. Right. But Thanks Mean Joe says this: Steelers aren't going to get anything for Dobbs.
Yeah, maybe a 7th round pick, if that.
If you get a 7th round pick, hey, I'll take it. It's better than cutting the guy. Someone says, Thomas White says Dobbs in a 6th, 7th for a Colts tight end. Yeah, that'd be great, but I agree with you. That's pretty tough to do. Now, I want to bring up Adam Renninger. I like this because 2 tight end personnel with Chooks and Jalen Samuels. Now, Chooks is a guy that played tight end last year as a blocker. So if he's going to be in there, he's going to be in there to block. That's perfect. So you use him as a tight end when you don't need to have an actual guy catch the football. Because remember, they have enough receivers. They're wealthy with receivers. People forget Jalen Samuels was a tight end. If you play him more as an H-back, that's not a bad situation to have. So, Adam, thank you for bringing that up. That's awesome. I got to bring this up. This just made me smile. You're going to love this one. We're global, Tony. We are global.
Yes.
Watching from Brazil, the D is flying. Luis Oliveira, thank you very much. Yeah, the D is flying. It is really feeling good. So there are so many things going on. We don't really have to answer too many more questions except for the tight end situation. The questions that are going to be answered, I'm not talking about us answering questions. I'm talking about the Steelers answering questions. We don't have to answer those questions in this game. We're answering questions on who the bubble guys are, how many quarterbacks you keep, how many tight ends that you're going to go with. Greg Getz wants to trade Rudolph to the Colts for Jack Doyle. I'd love to have Jack Doyle, but I really don't want to go ahead and I'm not ready to get rid of Rudolph. I think he's your guy. Vernon Woody gave us $199. Thank you, Vernon. So with that being said, somebody mentioned Big Al as a tight end. That's he was a receiver
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, he did catch a pass last year. So they can do things. They can figure some things out, and it's really exciting what they have going on here, Tony. So with that being said, what are your last parting shots? So we'll say it's the hangover. So last call.
Well, I mean, there's one more chapter to go into preseason, and you mentioned the bubble guys, and a lot of these questions are going to be answered on Thursday when these guys are going to be fighting for their football lives. And in a lot of ways, it's a fascinating part of the preseason because to us, like, it's just like do I want to watch this game? I get free tickets, whatever. And to these guys, it's their Super Bowl, so it's going to be interesting to see. There's probably 4, 5, 6 spots that are up for grabs, not starting, but just on for the roster. So, and it can go any number of directions based on the depth at each of these positions that we talked about during the show. So I'm looking forward to Thursday night.
I am not going to bring this up, but I am not going to bring this up on the board, but I'm going to just tell you, Elliot James, you made me smile. I have no clue what that means. But yeah, sure. And if you can see the live chat, you can look at it in there. Tony, I'll tell you offline. I'm just not going to bring it up on the board.
Provocative, I guess.
But with that being said, Kriakis mentioned I'm going to do some self-promotion here. He said, "Love the stand-up." BAD. I've been doing some stand-up comedy on the side. So I appreciate that. He saw that on Facebook, I believe. So I'm actually going to do some in a couple of weeks again. So thanks for the shout out. I appreciate that. I try to be funny every once in a while. I know it's not that funny on here all the time, but with that being said, thanks so much for everybody that joined in. We can't do this show without you guys. And that is what, I mean, all these comments, everything you do makes it so much better. Last 2 years, Tony and I did an audio show on Blog Talk Radio. So you guys bring up, we have right now, 92 of you to talk to with questions, with fun comments. We are a Steeler family, and I appreciate you all. And I know I can speak for Tony in that as well. So with that being said, thank all of you. Remember, this isn't the only show. This isn't even the best show on Behind the Steel Curtain. I think it's a good show, but we've got the Steelers Hangover. You know that. You're there. But we have the Steelers Preview with Jeff and Dave Schofield and myself. We've got Lance and Jeff doing the Standard is the Standard. they're also doing the post game shows, which you got to check out. I could watch Lance all day long. Dave has his Stat Geek show. Lance, yeah, I said it. That's another show. You never know what's going to pop up next. So, with that being said, check us out and subscribe, because when you subscribe, it's going to pop up to let you know when this show is going to be. With that being said, thank you for being with us. Next time we talk, it's going to be game week. All right. We are going to be doing the hangover next week around this time. It'll be Labor Day. We'll be doing that, but we'll be talking not just about the last game, the meaningless game against Carolina. We're going to talk about what it means to the regular season coming up. We are that close, my friends. We are that close to real football and the Patriots. And the more I think about it, bring on those Patriots, Tony. Bring them on. With that being said, thank you. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. We will talk to you later. Thank you. Tony,